Hello. Someday defense will exist again. Hey, listen. I'm kind of just. It is such a funny phenomenon to me, at least knowing myself and knowing just how deep my dislike of 3v3 was back in the day, that I mean, truly, 3v3 is kind of a refuge from a lot of the problems that 5v5 is facing right now. It's just very funny to me that I'm kind of just like, dude, can we just please get through 5v5? We can get back to 3v3 right now? Because that was the exact opposite of what Past Me was saying all the damn time, way too often, everywhere, and being very annoying and bitching about 3v3. I mean, whatever. A lot of people bitch about 3v3, but... Look, man. I'm not, like, pro 3v3 now. I guess I'm kind of pro 3v3. 3v3 just solves a lot of the game's issues. GLs are back to being harder to counter again. Defense theory crafting can flourish. It's not necessarily a cheese fest, or if your opponent does cheese, they don't necessarily just get to value trade everything to oblivion. And yeah, I was kind of thinking about this more today, is like, I mean, legitimately speaking, until CG kind of comes out with a game plan for how they're going to tackle some of these issues, I'm probably going to start reading a lot of new stuff through the lens of 3v3 with more interest than 5v5. Like, obviously 5v5 is the core of the game or whatever, blah blah blah. But 3v3 is just such a more interesting thing right now. That, like... Yeah, man, I don't know. Like, you give me a new character kit in 5v5. What's the character's fate gonna be? If it tries to go on defense, it's just gonna get overkilled. If you use it on offense, it's not gonna give you anything that we weren't already doing comfortably. Like, right? 3v3, we have a conversation. We play some fucking ball. We play some Galaxy Heroes. Yeah, it's a very weird thing, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see how things progress in the future, right? But anyway, we got a new Kron set. We also have the end of set 11. And a lot of implications on both ends. You'll be seeing a lot more snipes from Baby Mando versus Lord Vader. Let's talk about it. Alright, I mean, here's the main post, but honestly, I think we'll just go through this image by image. Is this big enough? We could go, like, slightly bigger, I guess. Bigger. This is the bottom, right? Yeah. How about that? That's about as good as it's gonna get. This is vertical format in a 16:9 frame. If you're enjoy, I'm not, dude. Like, so genuinely, I'm not. I probably have post logs I can pull up. Like, I just fundamentally hated 3v3, and I still, like, the things that I criticized 3v3 for back in the day are still true. But the fundamental fact of the matter is that 5v5 just has some massive flaws right now that 3v3, just by the nature of what it is, has kind of circumvented. That, like, I enjoy 3v3 a hell of a lot more than 5v5 right now. That's what it is. I would like to go back to enjoying 5v5 more than 3v3, because that's just the game, and that's where the potential is. But where things are at right now, man, it's the game we got. Anyway, all I'm saying is, if you're feeling the same way that I am about 5v5 right now, and you were also a fellow 3v3 hater, just take a bite. Just tell me you don't get the same enjoyment out of seeing people, you know, flail on your defenses and getting absolutely blown up that you used to miss in 5v5, knowing that you were gonna fight 0 GLs and that all your shit was just gonna get one shot. It's what it is. It's what it is. You can't really argue my way out of the fact that I'm having more fun at 3v3. So I guess for the moment I am a 3v3 enjoyer. Anyway, let's talk. This is in many ways exactly what I expected, but in a lot of ways it is also not, right? So set 11 is going away. Defense is leaving the picture. I guess we have resistance technically if you care about like teching and special damage. But in most cases that you're you could be thinking about resistance, you're probably just gonna be looking at deflection chance instead. So not really a bulk set, more so you just, I mean, we did this in one Kron set in the past, I believe, where it's like, right, like what, you give Lord Vader deflection chance, you can kind of tech against Fennec, she can't really do damage. Sure. We've been here before. It's a tech tool. But yeah, we have lost defense. We have lost bulk stats. So for example, if I want to keep doing stuff like Zori versus Rey, it's going to have to come from relics and mods now, right? That kind of becomes much higher investment suddenly. I'm probably going to have to do something like R9 my Resistance Zero Finn, maybe, depending. I don't know, man. Rose Omicron just... If I didn't have Rose Omicron, I wouldn't even need to have that conversation. I would just be fine, but... Rey ults hitting everyone for like 170k, 175k is just... It's not good for business. It turns out when you make a lot of turn meter against Rey, using Rose Omicron, it's less than ideal. But yeah, right, so... Set 11 was doing a lot of favors for teams on defense. And again, obviously, the state of the meta as it is right now, that isn't really saying terribly much. But with set 11 going away, defense is losing even more tools, and offense is gaining an absurd amount of tools. And I mean, we'll go through this with a fresh eye, but from the brief skimming that I didn't really see anything that screamed defense. There is kind of a little bit, but we'll talk about it as it comes up. Some of it's kind of cool. Some of it is like, sounds cool, but I'm not entirely too sure. Like we see crit damage here as well, so like kind of a continuance there. For example, crit damage here is much less than set 11 had, so we're also seeing a stat regression in that way. And I am actually kind of pro stat regression. I think set 11 was massively pay to win for the bracket of play that I was in. I was one of the people who got hooked in on it, and you know, I guess kind of fortunately I kind of cut myself off sooner than a lot of other players did, but it had a huge impact on the game, and it had a huge impact on my enjoyment, where there was just a huge stratification between people who went all out and had just like 350, 400% defense on everyone, and then like I was chilling like mid-20s, mid-10s, and like it was straight up just haves and have-nots, right? The people who had everything not only had all the defense crons, but all the answers to defense crons. People in the middle like me, I had a bunch of defense on my defense teams, and people who didn't, or who were just like trying to climb with the best that they had, were just getting absolutely stomped, right? It's like, I fought Skeltrix during that time, and it was just like, I was embarrassed. I was like, dude, like, he messaged me frustrated, and I was just like, you're right. This is, because normally fighting against Skeltrix was a treat, because he was one of the few people who would like reach out to me after a match, and we could like talk shop, and, oh, what'd you think of this and this and this and that? And there was no takeaway. The takeaway was just like, yeah, cool defense crons, man. And if you're not in that boat, then you're in exactly where you end up landing anyway, which is you pull all your GLs, and all right, and this is what Tassinix is having to do up in the top ranks right now, doing dirt, fucking fighting for his life, and like more credit for him for doing it, but like that was the degree of difference that Set 11 made, is you had to cheat. The difference in crons between high investment and low investment was so fucking big. You just had to pull all your teams, and it was, you're just trying to go for overkill to negate the cron difference. And so if we're talking about Set 11 going away, like, yes, do you look at a stat list like this and are a lot of people probably going to be less excited? Sure, but I do think, you know, there are portions of the player base for whom seeing stats kind of return to normal is a good thing. Right. Skeltrix quit. I believe he retired. Set 11 frustrated the hell out of him. I don't know if that was the entire reason. I don't really know him that well. I only spoke to him a couple times, but he was very unhappy with the GAC experience he was having with Set 11. I know that much for sure. For pretty good reason, right? But anyway, on that note, we also do see stuff like tenacity in the stat pool with no potency to counteract. This is rare when it happens, and normally in past sets, you know, I would be out here just, you know, fucking feasting. If there's anything I should be known for, it's my love for tenacity, defense, and protection. And so, listen, it's here, and we see it in big enough quantities that it could absolutely swing matchups. Nothing immediately comes to mind just because I think Galaxy of Heroes has evolved in a lot of ways since we last got a good Tenacity Datacron set. A lot of effects that can't be resisted, a lot more hard counter teams that don't necessarily care about Tenacity also exist now, which is something else to discuss in its own right. For example, I was talking about Phoenix and being excited for Tenacity set to come around for them to just go absolutely hog wild. Seems like Dark Gideon might be hard countering Phoenix instead. Dark Gideon doesn't really care about Tenacity. Right. Easiest example. For every matchup that you can tech with good Tenacity now, you have to be worried about the matchups that can just say, I don't care. So, worth keeping in mind, worth keeping an eye on. Definitely should have at least 1 or 2 places where it can hit, just, talking on average. Being able to say no to all incoming debuffs. Pretty good. Alright? You can imagine that has to have an effect somewhere, I'm just not entirely sure on use case yet. But overall, the stat package, I think it's okay. Alright? We'll grab some crit damage. It's also worth noting, 12 plus 13 means that JML is not going to have a protection cron for at least 2 months. And that's an interesting step down for him, but considering the state of off meta versus GL, JML's usual job was just to right, he was the offense king, right? He was the problem solver, bunker buster. I don't have an off meta for this, so I just send JML instead. He could still do that, but it was just less necessary, so he was just, at least for me, he was just kind of randomly overkilling some off meta teams. And if he maintains that position, that doesn't really change. He's still gonna win those fights, right? Room for skill expression is gone from the game. I think a lot of Skeltrix's frustrations were probably more so symptomatic of set 11 than a general issue with the game. But we'll see. I'm not trying to change dude's mind. His frustrations were real. But I wouldn't be curious to see if the state of the game doesn't return more to normal or normal-ish now that set 11 is gone. Right, the frustration that he felt is the same frustration that a lot of people felt with set 4. Such a sad DC set. I haven't described it as sad by any means. Anyway, yeah, probably just get to it, right? How zoomed in do we? I think we can do better than this. Every image is formatted differently, so we're just gonna have to try to do this live, I guess. Prime just wants more Garlov. Listen, Prime, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. They don't really need it. They're gonna be able to kill 6 out of 8 GLs, man. They got there. They're doing just fine. Trust me, I promised it. The favor happens. Oh god, I completely forgot the OBS banks when I'm holding down arrow, so it's not gonna stop when I let go, it's just gonna keep going. So I just have to Alright, it's just gonna keep going, I guess. We're doing a title crawl now. Okay, thank god it stopped. Anyway, this is probably the best I can get it for. What if we just cut off everything? That seems alright. Sure. That's legible. Okay. I don't think... Oh, no, actually, there is one major point of separation between light side and dark side this set. We have the first effect that we see here is different between dark side and light side. We have... First time ally reaches 90, 70, 50% thresholds. Reactively inflict doubt on a random enemy that doesn't already have it. And worth noting, this is doubt that can't be dispelled. It can't be prevented. So it's non-resistible and it's there to stay. That's not bad. It's not bad at all. The random nature of it is a little bit washy, but again, if we're talking defense theory crafting side of things, randomness, you prefer it not to be, but if it's gonna be, it's better than being bad. It just means that you're relying on a high roll rather than, being able to set up a guaranteed effect. But yeah, right? I mean, this is per ally, 3 triggers. That's a pretty significant amount of doubt. And then if you look at the light side of things, also a very cool effect. This is going to be so hard to analyze the power of. My gut immediately really likes what I'm seeing here. It's a 75, 50, and 25% health trigger. It's non-dispellable, non-preventable, 50% protection up, right? It's reactive shielding. I'm like, hey. Again, if I'm known for anything, I like my reactivity, I like my reactive defense tools. It gives you an opportunity to try to disrupt your opponent. In a game where we don't have live PvP, planning and placing your reactivity in really good places is a way for you to directly place a hand on whatever your opponent's trying to do and say, nah, right? So, yeah, I'm a fan. My gut says the light side effect seems like it would be more powerful, but, and again, doubt is not a bad debuff by any means. Let's see if I can just... Does the Naugus page still have the description, I believe? I guess Terminator block. I'm trying to remember what else. Can't get better Terminator or buffs or recover protection, right? So yeah, right? Like anti-protection block, that's kind of crazy. If we're talking like bounty hunter stuff. Suddenly Grief is not your anti-dot man. Now, if we're talking about like bounty hunters against Orbitor, is deflection going to be the larger deterrent? Sure. But if you're just looking for like a possible value deterrent, putting them on 2 turns of doubt, Grief does make a lot of turn meter, but doubt blocks turn meter. Grief does heal a lot of protection, but it blocks protection. If you're not looking to go crazy on Cron stats, this seems like a pretty decent value proposition. I don't know. It's not bad. Worth noting, LV-wise, Bo-Katan is absolutely going to destroy him for reasons that we'll get to later, but that is a problem for a very small subset of the player base. There's only so many Bo-Katans rolling around. If you feel like scouting your opponent, if you see Bo-Katan, maybe pay some respect, but otherwise, we continue our regularly scheduled meta, right? So yeah, reactive doubt for dark side, reactive protection up for light side. I'm a big fan of this effect. This is cool. Deflection is special damage reflection. It's not going to apply to physical, which is a large majority of the game. It's going to affect people like Bausch. It'll affect people like Fennec. It'll affect people like the Risen Zero Bros or special damage. Halzen is special damage. It's more places than you would think, but it's still not that many places. I don't know if there's like a best tool to line out who of importance is special damage. But yeah, right? Like I think Jabba might be interesting with deflection, right? I mean, for example, if you're worried about Jabba against Night Sisters, deflection might not necessarily stop Plague, but it's going to put them in a Plague-only game plan where you can't hit a lot of your stuff. It actually might block it entirely. That really seems to shut down Fennec. Yeah, that's kind of the running trends. On top of giving Bo-Katan an I win button is... I mean, I'm saying that I like the theory crafting for what I'm seeing, or the design for what I'm seeing for the level 3. Putting out a bunch of Fennec blockers and then making Bo-Katan an I win button is something I'm very strictly not a fan of, shall we say. But yeah, so let's see. Gain above the recovery 2% health and protection. I mean, like, right, we just went through resist regen. I continue to think that even though these effects don't sound flashy, I think they can absolutely hit in certain spots and give you a surprising amount of value. Resist is a little bit easier to talk about than other effects because of the fact that you're going to be thrown debuffs in a lot of cases where it's applicable more than worrying about, like, making buffs. But we'll go to defense, perhaps. We'll talk about it when we get there. I don't think so, but we'll talk about it when we get there. Alright, I guess I'll caveat it. I'll say that if you think your opponent's bad, you can probably post her, but she's 100% answerable. Maybe the best that you could say is that... Again, we'll talk about it when we get there. It's not entirely unpostable, but it is completely solvable. Anyway. Next effects, same for light side and dark side. Whenever you inflict a debuff, you gain crit chance stacking for 3 turns. Not too many teams care about this. Most teams and characters are crit chance self-sufficient nowadays. There are some exceptions. You know, there are strength attackers, characters like Drogon, characters like Cam, characters like Jedi Anakin, characters like BT1. They are out there. Like, you know, I guess BT1 could be like, I guess technically specifically interested in it, I guess. But more likely than not, you're probably going to be looking more towards the last effects. To get there, we'll have to talk about the return of 25% chance to dispel all buffs in yourself. Too inconsistent to be too excited about, but like, again, like, I don't know. There are counters for which, like, maintaining debuffs on everyone is important, and if this gives you a chance to just, like, high roll your way out of it, right? Rey, if we're talking to Starkiller versus Rey, Starkiller requires keeping her debuffs to lower her damage output. If you apply this effect to Rey, if she 25% cleanses herself on the turn where she goes to Whirlwind Emperor Palpatine, there's a 1 in 4 chance that Emperor Palpatine is going to die to Whirlwind and not live with, you know, 40-ish% of bulk, right? So, a bit of a casino effect, but like if you're just posting Rey and trying to fish for Starkiller holds or disruption, that could be a way to do it. It's not a bad effect. Again, it's a slight chance of reactivity, just very low reactivity. If this is like an example of high reactivity where we have 3 guaranteed effects per person, this is just like, if you know a matchup well enough that you know a well-placed Dispel could flip it, like the Starkiller versus Rey example, you could try to go that route if you really wanted. It's there for you. But yeah. The last effect is the return of Amplify Agony. It's a pretty good effect, right? It's a pretty huge buff for Grievous. Pretty nice general value for a lot of other teams that are just able to crank out a good amount of debuffs. It's a good feeling effect. It's not too crazy, but it's pretty damn good. For Grievous, I would say it's kind of crazy, right? It's a huge amount of Terminator train for him. For everyone else, it's just some nice icing on the top, and that's fine. But yeah, I would say overall clear winner of the set, definitely going to be the reactive light side dark side effect on top. Amplify Agony will also just be a good filler for a lot of squads. Probably those are the main two. Maybe a cheeky dispel chance where applicable. Maybe look for opportunities for like buff regen, but that only really hits so many squads, right? So I honestly expected to be a little bit off in the weeds here, but I still kind of feel like these effects seem fairly tame. I was predicting that Mandalorians would get grit, and technically they did, but not on the level 6. They gave it to exactly one of them on the level 9. I was predicting that Mandalorians would give Bo-Katan Mandalore seasonally, and they did not do that either. They instead just gave Pause a part of the effect. So both of my predictions were about 20% correct. It was like in the right arena, but CG just didn't give them the entire effect. They just randomly gave them to one character on the level 9 instead of giving it to everybody. So who knows, man? I'm not sure. It's not what I thought it would be. Doesn't mean it has to be, but just it's weird, all right? So what do we have instead here? I actually didn't read these too closely. So we have the Mandalorian stacking offense back. Immediately what I can tell you is that Dark Side Mandalorians don't really need this, and Light Side Mandalorians don't scale with offense, aside from their base kits. The true damage that Bo-Katan is providing to Mandalorians, in case you don't know, does not scale with offense. It's flat. It's flat whether you're Relic 0 or Relic 10. Unmodded or all 8 dot mods. So stacking offense here kind of just means nothing to me. Like, yeah, I guess we could put it with Maul ISC and they'll crush even harder, but it's just kind of a win more effect. It's not really helping you do anything you didn't already do. I guess you could argue that it opens up modding budget to kind of fit in tenacity and bulk or whatever other kind of mod investments that you would want rather than offense. So in that way, I'm not going to like entirely write it off. Also, this is slightly cut off. The one that I'm actually talking about. Hello. I guess I'll have to move it with every new page. But yeah, right, it's the stacking offense effect back again. If there's no like other more interesting option here, it'll be fine to run. It's just not really gonna change anything. yeah, I guess it'll just give us more budget for utility in our mods. Definitely more Maul ISC focused than Bo focused. Maybe we'll feel nice with pause too. We'll see. Pause level 9 is pretty decently nice, especially if we're talking over 33. But yeah, what are the other effects? Let's see. Bubble 50% health, reduce cooldowns, and gain 10% turn meter. This was never really that good. I think we could just skip it. If you're ever in a position where that's your best option in a set, it's just kind of not really an interesting set. It's definitely one of the worst options the game has had. Whenever ally is granted buff to another ally, the ally gains 10% turn meter, limit once per turn per ally. This would apply to Ancestral, would it not? I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a green buff. We have a Galactic Challenge open. I believe we do. But is it fleet? Bonuses for Sith? Maybe not. Let's see. I tenacity, I'm probably screw Starkiller versus Ray. Mara's first turn is just going to be to AoE tenacity up. Or tenacity down, so... You can still kind of mess with Mara's turn order if you incorporate, like, starting Foresight units like JTR to kind of throw off her double turn. But it's still not quite that clean, right? Like we're talking like L3, we're talking JTR, stuff like that. Try to get Starkiller versus Ray, Mara turn down to like 60% turn meter. Like, probably you want closer to 40. I'm not going to say you're wrong, because you're not, and especially in 3-3 it'll have a huge impact, but you really need to make sure you theorycraft the team to capitalize on what the tenacity is offering to you. Don't just think that you can plug in the tenacity alone, right? That's kind of what I'm saying here. Also worth noting, rebel-wise, while we're in this screen, not actually related to Leia, but one of the notable things in the past for when we had tenacity cron sets, especially when there wasn't potency to counteract it, is... Chipio Stat Share is extremely happy to see large amounts of tenacity for sharing purposes that you can get an effect, kind of like what people are suddenly, for whatever random reason, discovering for Akbar lead. Yeah, you just get that without having to run a bad character, without having to run a bad lead. Pretty cool. You get a lot of tenacity. It's fun. You just don't get debuffed. What are we here for? Bo-Katan Mandalore. Oh, I just realized what CG's doing here. Fuck. Alright. I said something on the Discord earlier, and I'm pretty sure it's just incorrect. So, just do it to me, dude. I already know what's coming. Pop bird stance. We hit the Bo-Katan mass. Okay, so you get like 60, 70% preload. Okay, so that... Okay, the turn meter on buff is probably going to be core for Bo-Katan. Right? So we haven't talked about it yet, but in case you already know, Bo-Katan's level 9 gives her a bonus turn at match start. It also has another effect, but on top of that, what this means is that Bo-Katan will just go immediately, give her team a bunch of turn meter. There's still something a little bit weird to be said about the fact that normally the team's preferred flow is you have Bam pop bird stance, and then you have Bo-Katan do the mass assist to make a bunch of birds. It's not required that you do that, but you are technically giving that aspect up for all this extra turn meter. I think on average you're still probably pretty happy to make this trade. Okay, yeah, I didn't connect those two dots. So yeah, right. Unless there's some weird interaction, the Mandalorian turn meter is just going to synergize very well with Ancestral. It's going to give them a lot of good initial tempo. Yeah, that'll be strong. As far as I can tell, it should definitely just count as a normal buff. So I think we can assume that it will, and I think that at that point that seems like a pretty strong Bo-Katan plugin. Okay, go away. I no longer require your services. Okay, so far, and we should probably read the others first before I say this, but Terminator for Bo, stacking offense for Maul ISE definitely seems pretty likely. Whatever an enemy is defeated by an ally, that enemy can't be revived. That would be nice for a couple things. I want to say... What am I thinking of?
Hello there.
Hey, Baltimore up. Give me the 2 bucks, man. Hello there yourself. Senor Kenobi. Yeah. Am I thinking of the Maul pause testing? I have very specific memories of Maul against LV Reva and the revive block being necessary there. Oh, it was because of Maul pause Watts. Weird. Anyway, all of this is to say, there were definitely some circumstances where, like, the Watt weapon tech for the revive block was actually kind of impactful. That, like, this kind of hits in that circumstance. It's technically not wrong still. Like, if you really wanted to do Maul, pause, Watt against LV Reva, this ticks that box off. Like, you... Yeah, that works. That's very specific, though. Beyond that, I mean, what? If we thought that it was possible for Mandalorians to take on Jabba, I guess it would be nice against Kersantin. A revive block could be situationally nice, for sure. But I feel like revive block is usually more associated with posting on defense. And yeah, the synergy on the other 2 effects we mentioned so far definitely seem most ideal. So I say let's just talk about this last effect. Haven't seen this yet. Whenever an ally falls below 100% health, they gain a bonus turn, bonus once per character per battle. Okay. So yeah, grab a little bit of reactivity. So here's the kind of funky thing. I think Bo is very interested in turn meter. The Maul squad doesn't actually need to take turns that often, aside from Maul himself. How much does Maul tax himself? Is there ever a world where we could, like, anguish Maul down into 2 consecutive... I guess it wouldn't be 2 consecutive blast chains. You would still, like... You would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then 2, 1, 0. That's not bad itself. But also the way that this works, like... No, this wouldn't really work for him, right? Because you would tax yourself to 0 before you lose your normal bonus turns anyway. It wouldn't work for him. I don't think this is real. I mean, hey man, there's some reactive tools that, like, if Mandalorians do end up trying to go on defense, if Mandalorians do end up trying to go on defense, I'm probably gonna at least be keeping this in the back of my mind. It's worth remembering that a lot of effects like this give your opponent creative control over your turn order, right? I mean, there also are some other potential upsides, right? Like, you imagine, like, a Bad Batch Echo uses his AoE that just gives everyone on your team immediate bonus turns. That's kind of funny. Like, maybe that gives Maul a little bit more defensive tools against Bad Batch. Still just going to immediately lose the Jawas on sight because they didn't give Mandalorians actual grit. They only gave grit to fucking IG-12. Woo. Is IG-12 a pacifist? I forget. Does he retreat if he's the last standing? Because then at least technically there's value for, like, retreat. Is he not? If there are no other ally combatants, he escapes from battle. Yes. Okay. So there wasn't even the value play of like, well, you Jawa my maul, but I time you out or whatever. That just no. They didn't give Mandalorians grit. They gave it to one character. I did. Yeah, I don't know. It's not bad, but given the rest of the Datacron stuff that we have, it's like this maybe hits for Maul, and that's probably going to be kind of it, I would say. So let me see. I think they changed one of my settings. They say that they immediately just banish the page instead. I have no idea what. I need to get off of this OBS, man. I know I keep saying it, but like. Okay. Yeah, this effect it's like maybe interesting for Maul to try to be on defense, but more than likely, like again, hard counter by Jawa. So unless your opponent doesn't have Jawa, it's not really worth looking at. And even then, Maul on defense, you would still just have to worry about the usual BS of the fact that Maul is slow to start, very disruptible if your opponent knows how to play the video game. Yeah. It's there. It exists. It can maybe catch some people out if they, try to bad batch your Maul or something. They'll probably hit Echo AoE and then immediately blow up for it. No, he doesn't drop himself below 100% on his first turn. Anguish goes onto his protection bar. I don't know. I keep an eye on it. Don't write it off yet, but it's a good effect, but I think it would hit way harder for other factions than Mandalorians, is I guess what I would say. I wouldn't mind seeing it reprinted for other factions in the future. But yeah, for the most part, I think probably the play is going to be go for offense stack if you're going for dark side Mandalorians. Just kind of take some damage budget out of Gar IC, put them more on tenacity, put them more on bulk, Maul, focus more on speed, most likely. Kind of let the level 6 do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. If you, get good amounts of tenacity, good amounts of speed, you'll probably just have a team that runs a lot better in the process. So yeah, not too bad. And then yeah, the Terminator effects, I feel like this hasn't been all that crazy necessarily in the past a lot of the time, but here for Bo-Katan, she makes enough buffs passively that it'll hit. It'll be good. But definitely the level 6 to go for her if you're going for the Bo-Katan level 9. Rebel Fighter. When they lose a stack of heal over time, the game and a stack of heal over time for 2 turns. That's kind of funny. It's like LV lead, but for Chirrut support. That's really funny. It's a cool flavor. I mean, the main thing that I'm thinking here is that Chirrut's passive heal doesn't actually count. It's the same flat value, so in order to really cash this in, you would need to be gaining a lot of turns to... Right, like, ostensibly, this goes for long enough, you're going to be gaining obscene amounts of health on turn. It's just a long window in between that point where, like, right, if you could have, like, comboed this effect with Rebel 75% damage reduction or something, it would be wild. But here, alone in a vacuum as a level 6, I don't know if it goes far enough. It's cool. Flavor-wise, I love it. But I'm not sure. Whenever allies grant a buff to another ally, the ally gains 10% turn meter limit once per turn per ally. There are a few cases that I can think of that could provide some decent value. Anytime this effect comes up... Oh, wait. Bo-Katan is also limit once per turn for ally. Fuck. So she's not going to be 70%. It's just going to be 10%. It's better than nothing, but I was thinking that she was going to, like, transfer her bonus turn to everyone. That's not the case. Man... Alright. I feel like she's probably still going to want it. Rereading it. I read the effect that I wanted to believe existed. It's not that extreme. Depending on how it counts some of like the passively made debuffs at the start, it's also possible that she'll get like 20% team wide or 30% or it would be 20% probably. What's in her basic? Because she will also be using her basic once. Doesn't she have speed up or something? Yeah. Okay, so if the passive amount counts, she will give everyone roughly 30% Terminator. So that's still pretty much good enough to go before a lot of things except GLs. So, not bad. Any of this Rebel Fighter stuff boosting Leia? I believe they were pretty thorough from what I skimmed about checking for a Rebel Fighter lead. I guess this they did not, but I mean, like Inquisitors and other stuff is not going to care about this effect. I guess Leia could maybe make a decent amount of usage of the buff grant, so maybe she'd be interested in that for sure. What else? Bubble 50% effect, you can kind of just ignore it. Whenever allies are revived, they gain protection over time for 2 turns and 25% turn meter. I think it's way too niche. Rebel fighters just aren't reviving that often, and usually if they are, it's not a good situation for them to begin with. Whenever allies critically hit an enemy during their turn, that ally gains 10% offense, stacking for 2 turns. I mean, yeah, I would imagine 10% turn meter feels like the best potential effect for them as well. Wait, what, like Drogon uses his flamethrower, I guess that's 30% offense or whatever. It's not bad. Right. Where was it? Oh, I think it was the level 9s I checked for. Yeah, like if the allied leaders are rebel fighters. We don't see it on the 6s necessarily, so Leia could splash here. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's probably gonna end up just being Terminator. Just try to make her a little bit more aggressive, maybe. Leia's gonna run into a lot of issues once Set 11 expires, so hard to really say. There's nothing like too crazy flashy here compared to what Mandalorians are picking up value-wise, but it's not a bad amount. It's just, yeah, again, like kind of like Bo-Katan. Probably some turn meter, probably get a little bit ahead that way. Probably not going to get too much more than that. Empire. Our enemy loses turn meter, allies gain protection up, stacking 10% for 2 turns. Whenever ally loses protection up, they gain 10% turn meter. That's kind of funny flavor, I guess. Mothra revive under Leia. Yeah, but the things that are going to be killing Leia without damage reduction are not really going to care about my Mothra revive. Leia is about to take a major step down, and especially depending on some of the future factors that we'll talk about, Leia is going to be probably unpostable. We'll cross that bridge momentarily. So yeah, gain some shielding for enemies losing turn meter, then gain some turn meter for enemies damaging you back. I kind of like the flavor in this. It's not the craziest effect, but I don't hate it by any means. It's cool. At the end of their turn, allies gain defense pen up and offensive for 1 turn. I mean, that's kind of just more Imperial Trooper build around, I guess. So Imperial Troopers will maintain some amount of combo pieces. Good to know. 40% offense to defense conversion seems like it's continuing. Although, was it lose 50% defense or was it lose 200% defense? It might have still been 50% this last time. For whatever reason, I thought it was like plus 400%, minus 200% or something. I don't know. Anyway. That continues, but this is a set without defense. It has resistance. I saw some people saying that apparently there was a whole thing a while back about whether the Kron set used defense or only resistance. And like maybe this would actually abuse that effect much more now. I'm not entirely sure, but it's possible that this effect could technically be better for it if you stack resistance on it, or it might do nothing at all. Kind of depends on what the fate of that debate is. But yeah. I mean, potentially good effects. It's still just... The thing to keep in mind is that it's at the start of their first turn. I see some people using it in places where they just assume that it immediately hits at the start of battle, and that is not the case. You can 100% just get your item team blown up if they are not cashing in the value on that ASAP. Whenever allies target another ally with ability, 5% stacking. A lot of people seem to like this effect. I think it's always been bad. It's just way too dependent on something way too specific that any team's ever really... you would think that, like, something like JML would be, like, best suited to this, and I still wouldn't use this on JML in most cases. It's just not good. It's too slow to stack, and it's too specific of a scenario to actually stack it that, like... The only scenario that I think it ever really made sense is if you're holding Rey and if you're building a team to stack up Rey and you're just trying to, like, win via inevitability win con. It makes sense there. That's about it. Whenever allies critically hit an enemy during their turn, that ally gains 10% off and stacking for 2 turns. Not bad. But it's probably just the worst version of 40% stacking. Or you could just call it a more budget version of 40% stacking if you don't have a high investment Datacron to go with it. Empire allies, even target allies. Piet, Thrawn, Seven Sister. Easier to just look at the lists. Yes, no, no, yes, no. No, he might, or is he just automatically calling Dark to assist? Yeah, it just calls it to assist. It doesn't actually target. No, 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 yes. No, no, no. I'm just gonna say yes when I see it. How about that? There's a whole lot of no's here. Yes, I think. If the allied leader is Imperial Remnant, yeah, they have a assist call. Yes. Yeah, that's about it. There's not a whole lot. I mean, so that's kind of case in point, right? The faction can barely even do it, and even if a faction is good at doing it, I still think it's just not that good of an effect. I think it's historically been bait in like every use case except for one. So take that how you will. Did I get here slightly? Yeah. I mean, it was the last effect anyway, but yeah. Not that good. So yeah, I mean, I imagine it's going to be a lot of defense conversion again. Imperial Troopers are going to want their buff soup, inevitably. Maybe some niche uses for this, but again, that's going to be... I mean, what, like, Moff Gideon has some stagger action going on. Lord Vader might be able to get some stagger action going on and make good uses of protection up. Ignoring the Bo-Katan use case, which... yeah. Let's talk about Bo-Katan, shall we? Fall eyes are light side Mandalorians. At the start of battle, Bo-Katan takes a bonus turn, which can't be prevented. It takes random non-galactic legend ally loses... Our enemy loses 100% protection. When she uses the basic ability on someone who doesn't have protection, they are instantly defeated. CG printed... If Lord Vader is present and his team, or, well, not if his team, you can just one-shot any non-GL, Empire, or Unaligned Force users. She will make one random person lose their protection, so no matter who you fight, unless they start off with instant defeat immunity, you will just get to delete a person of your choice, unless they can reactively heal a little bit of protection. But for the most part, this is just like, if you see Lord Vader, you just win. Literally just delete everyone. Yeah. Your opponent has Bo-Katan. You are basically donating Lord Vader to it. Or, yeah. Which also technically means you're donating Maul to it, but... It's worth noting, Lord Vader only does the health protection conversion for Empire and Darkside Ufus. but he can work with all people of dark side orientation, so I don't think it's all doom and gloom for him. There's some theory crafting to be done there of like, you know, what if you just make a disrupty team out of like Sith or something like that, where you deny Bo-Katan's one shot aside from, I mean, she's taking one. She's leaving here with some. She's taking one. But you will, you know, potentially be able to create a ball game from everything else after that fact. And still stop her from winning the video game in doing so, if you really feel like going that direction. It's a good effect. And we haven't finished talking about it yet. Whenever an enemy is defeated, she takes a bonus turn which can't be prevented. That's why when I saw that Terminator level 6, I was thinking, oh, she could use her mass and feed everybody, you know, 70% Terminator. It's not going to work that way. If anything, I actually might be back on my original thought. Yeah, if her mass assist is generating the same amount of Terminator as... Yeah, that's... Yeah. Okay, my gut was correct. We are not going to want to use Bo-Katan's mass assists on her bonus turn, right? So what's going to happen? You're going to start the match, you're going to remove someone's protection, you're going to take your turn, you're going to basic that person and immediately kill them. We will either have 10% or 20% Terminator at that point. You could mass assists. If you really wanted to, you could. But I think you're going to be better off just doing another basic, most likely. The basic is just going to give your team 10% more Terminator, which is the exact same amount as you were going to get on the mass assist. You wait for Bam to get to his turn naturally, you let him post up, you pop the mass, you hit pop the Bam birds, you're playing video games, right? Was Big Bo good against JMK? Bo is already, like... Does it say only remove non-GL? Yeah, random non-GL enemy loses 100% protection. I mean, like what? So maybe you can insta-kill Cat, maybe you can insta-kill Ahsoka. Insta-killing GK would be valuable potentially. If you hit Ahsoka, it's probably a low roll. If you hit Cat, you're probably still happy with that effective bulk reduction. If you hit Padme, you're happy. I'm not sure how it would flow if Ahsoka is not present. Otherwise, for the most part, it's doing pretty okay. What's my phone doing? I'm about to just, like, shut this off. Weird. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, if you delete Ahsoka, it's definitely, like, the lowest impact. It's still a free kill, but it, like... You're still just concerned about, can I actually, like, melt through GK Padme? But also, hey, Soul Eleven's expiring. Health Crown is gone, so that's also going to become much easier. Yeah, I would imagine Bo-Katan against JMK will become easier now. Just kind of for... Not even just this effect, but just for various reasons. A lot of factors. I mean, what? If you have an opponent that posts Leia and JMK, then you probably shift to Reva against Leia and Bo-Katan against JMK or something. Or you just use Maul, because you're probably, well, maybe, probably not posting Maul with Lord Vader. If you're posting Lord Vader. If your opponent has Bo-Katan. So, okay, that's very powerful. It's honestly not quite as oppressive as Afra's effect, I would say. But combined with the starting Terminator, it's still, like, fairly significant, I would say. Is this defense postable is kind of an interesting question. I mean, at minimum, you have to acknowledge the fact that... Because the Bo-Katan uses her basic off of her mass, right? So the defense will use her mass. Yeah, she calls herself to assist. So if you post her on defense, if she bonus turns and you don't, like, shoot her with Han or something, she could ostensibly just instantly kill one of your characters And if you really wanted, you could put a revive blocking effect behind that just to make sure that she's playing for keeps. You could cope for that angle. I mean, given the state of the meta, I would imagine that a lot of people would adapt to just, like, use Rey against Bo-Katan so that you have the revive block effect and just completely deny the value. But it's there. It exists. Whether or not she would actually aim at the person with protection would also be a fairly large point of concern. I would imagine the person losing their protection would make them weakest, so in the AI's eyes, they would probably want to aim at them, but I don't think that's necessarily a guarantee. Keep that in mind. But yeah, there's definitely a boost for the squad, definitely solves some of their issues. Definitely just kind of an insane effect, definitely just kind of fills the same part in the schedule that Afra did of they release a kind of legendary, they boost it up with a seasonally pretty insane chron effect, and then once it expires, the character kind of just goes back to being like, yeah, pretty fun. Not crazy, not god awful, just like having clear holes in their kit, I guess you would say. And like at this point, I don't think we really expected like Afra's gonna get a dark side tank at 8 point, right? They're just gonna keep returning Datacron whatever they want her to matter. Seems more likely. But yeah, like if you really wanted, I guess, like a lot of cheesers will actually probably favor the BKM effects, unless it turns out that CLS just like hard answers her, which is it's entirely possible that he will. Or like you could try to set up like a banner tax that way. Or at least threaten it if you're cheeser versus cheeser. Let's say one side's Bo-Katan deletes somebody and the other side's cheeser does it. That's just a casino RNG effect that puts one cheeser ahead for no real skill costs. Or yeah, you just draft someone who has instant defeat immunity. Or a revive, but you know, you would imagine that like some people might put a revive block behind it. So you put something like a Ben Soul in front of it. Team can't be instantly defeated. Bo-Katan leaves sad and disappointed. And life goes on. Yeah, hey, it's a good effect. We knew that this was coming pretty much. The person who shows up this year in Afra and Bo-Katan slot is probably going to get roughly the same treatment. It's just the way that the game is flowing right now. IG-12 and Grogu. The grit that I expected to see, it's here on one person. This is not really worth the slot. Especially knowing that he's a pacifist. Because what grit could do in a lot of times, I mean, usually you would see it on an entire team, so the entire effect would be applied. But like, you know, let's say the grit stops a team from doing their game plan to just one person. He's a pacifist character. He's gonna retreat. So there's no point in him last standing unless you just believe that he was at risk of dying before that point. The grit is just so beyond the point of this effect. I mean, the best that you could say is it's gonna boost his passive healing, right? That is true. You can look at it here. It's based on his health pool. Whenever he takes a turn, it's something like 10% or 20% of his health. Yeah, when he takes a turn, all lights up Mandalorian allies heal for 10% of his health at the full health they were gained offensive and 10% protection up. Woo. Insane. Grit will boost that. It doesn't matter. It's not a relevant part of his kit. It exists. It technically gives that value, sure. The real value for Grogu is just this effect. Whenever he uses a special, an additional light side Mandalorian ally is called to assist. Core problem with this is the next level 9 is literally just a better version of this. Paz Vizsla. Whenever another ally uses an ability on their turn, he assists once per turn, dealing 50% more damage. Before Bo-Katan Mandalore exists, back when I had hope in my heart, stars in my eyes, I was excited for the future of the light side Mandalorians. The one issue that I had with the squad was the amount of randomness that IG-12 brought to the table with his assist calls, where a lot of his kit would say something like, where is it? Yeah, whenever he uses a special ability, a random other light side Mandalorian ally assists. there were times I was using Paz and Grogu before Bo-Katan released, and believe it or not, they're actually like not far off from being pretty decent. Like we were doing arena testing, and they were beating gas. This solves the issue that I had because I played it in GAC and 3v3 like 2 or 3 times I think, and one match I lost because, again, it's random assist call between OG Bo and Paz. It was like 3, 4, 5 consecutive turns. We just kept calling OG Bo, and literally that was the difference between me winning or losing. Was I just needed to call Paz once. I just needed a real amount of damage output. What does this level 9 do? It's coming. It's here. It's there. Paz is just going to assist a bunch. This is what Paz wants. This, like, if we're talking about, if I talked about this Datacron set and I was like, hey, I think they're going to add grit. They got a lot of stacking health and defense, so you would naturally think they would add grit to kind of counteract how exploitable stacking health can be. They gave it to one person. They gave it to Grogu. What was the other thing that I talked about having a problem with for Bo-Katan Mandalore? They didn't give her the Mandalore lead. We have kind of not really the Mandalore lead here with Paz. He's at least going to be assisting a bunch, I guess. Still don't have the auto cleanse component and the auto taunt component that was like really the secret sauce. But what this means at minimum is I think that OG Bo-Katan with IG-12 and Paz Vizsla is actually probably going to feel pretty good this season. This helps a lot. Even if you get an OG Bo call, you're still just in the mix. So I'm pretty happy to see it. I know people are going to look at Bo-Katan Mandalore. I know people are going to look at, you know, Bam Kron being back with the super whistling birds. And for good reason. But don't sleep on this Paz Vizsla effect. Like, if you don't have Gar ISC, but you're working towards Bo-Katan Mandalore and you're holding Maul for offense, run this with Maul, dude. It's a good effect for a character who will absolutely put in good work. If you just, I know that Paz is a tank. I know people are probably building him for tank. But back before Bo-Katan Mandalore came out, the correct way to build Paz was to say, fuck tank sets. I'm going all in on offense. I'm going all in on crit chance. Maybe sneak some bulk secondaries if you can. But he's a carry. He's a bruiser carry. This is an effect that he wants very badly. I think it's going to be fun to play with. I'm looking forward to playing with it. Good effect. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try to get it. Of course, right next to it, bam. We've already had this before. We know it's good. It's back. It's good. Yeah, you'll probably get it. Regarding the question of, like, use case is... I'm not even sure what I think. Like, it's very obvious that the Bo-Katan Mandalore effect is kind of meant to be better. I do think that Bo-Katan's team will kind of want to go, like, a toolkit setup where, like, I could see situations where, like, you say, okay, my opener, I don't really need to go fast that badly. I just want to mess you up. So maybe you just go for the discipline setup situation where you say, okay, this is more power than, like, insta-killing one person would be. I would imagine we're probably going to be in a situation where we want both. And also, I remember, like, this was, like, set 3, I think, right? The game was very, very, very different back then. Very different landscape. But I do remember Maul with Bam being posted back then on 3v3. So I don't know if that's ever a consideration to want to see a return. But yeah. Like, obviously very strong effects. I don't know if this is ever just going to herald the return of, like... I mean, it's not going to be Maul Bam. I don't know, like, okay, it was a very good Chron effect in its day. Like, it's just seeing it next to Bo-Katan Mandalore is kind of weird to think about, like, where it's gonna sit, especially when we talk about 3v3, right? But this is the funny thing, is Bo-Katan's team is a pretty fat question mark in 3v3 because Bam has already usually historically struggled in 3v3. Now with Maul, it was kind of different because Maul just had enough hits that you were chilling. Bo-Katan is gonna have this problem, right? If you run like Bo, Bam, Pause, you're not making 15 birds. You're doing what? Bo's gonna make 2, Pause is gonna make 6. You're gonna have 11 whistling birds. That's kinda it. It's not great. I don't know, man. It's there. It exists, I guess. It'll be fine. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if Mandalorians actually just get kind of wacky with their splits to 3v3. Again, I think OG Bo with Pause and IG-12, that's a really good feeling core that just has excellent synergy with each other. A lot of stuff to be happy about there. Obviously, OG Bo isn't entirely amazing, but her unique is excellent. Her AoE has an AoE days, believe it or not. There's a lot to like there, and the leadership is giving Pause and IG-12 a lot of what they like. Didn't Dash Bam kind of become a thing for a while with this Kron set? I don't know if we're ever having the conversation to like Dash Hondo Bam or something like that. Alright, there's a decent amount of bird generation there for sure. I mean, what are we even talking about at this point? Like, what's the split? Alright, let's see. Okay, this is news. Yeah, like something like Dash seems like it would be just as much of an abuser. I think Dash Hondo probably. Bo-Katan is such a question mark to me. Alright, let's make it unique only. I mean, we'll see. Keep me honest, like, it's entirely possible that, like, maybe we just end up preferring being on Bo-Katan Mandalore plus IG-12 plus Pause anyway. But I think this team hits. And Bo just solo Lord Vader? Fuck, man. It non-zero chance of yes. You, I imagine it's just you and you. If you're going separate, which I guess you probably are. Where does that leave us? Bam. I mean, if that's the split, it's what? It's either like... Yeah, like... Bo-Katan Mandalore call armor to assist for 2x2. Yeah. Hey, how's Bo-Katan's mass assist worded? Is it light side Mandalorians? It's probably light side Mandalorians, but I'm just wondering. Yep. Bo Mandalore plus Sabine. Sabine's not a bad pull. I mean, what, she's 8? That puts you at 13. It's not the worst number if we're just looking for, like, maximizing character count. You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong. Armor could, like, depending on what the task is for Bo-Katan Mandalore, she could definitely just, like, go armor style and ditch Bam. Okay, I kind of need to get rid of unique only for the Bo-Katan stuff. So we're kind of in here. Maybe this type of beat. What's her conditional? Yeah, so it's less than 70% and less than 30%. And we're not getting the 70% off of the ancestral mass. It's limited to once per turn. So this is kind of just the armor problem. You're going to be more in the 2x2 rather than the 4x2. Badly. I don't think it works. Unfortunately. I mean, whatever, man. Fortunately or unfortunately. Fucking the set 13 effect is basically just better ancestral anyway, so running Bam with Bo-Katan is really kind of not all that required. I mean, hey, CG never updated Bam to be Mandalorian synergetic anyway, so isn't this truly just what CG intended? He is a scoundrel with only scoundrel synergy after all, so there we go. He's home at last. Boom. Behold. The perfect Mandalorian team. Kind of leaves her in a funky spot, though, huh? I mean, 3v3 wise. I mean, yeah, it's 30 teams. Is this too many Mandalorians? I mean, the problem is, like, overall, it's pretty good squads, except for Bo-Katan, but Bo-Katan's kind of doing some stuff herself. I guess this is just kind of LV cop. Does Bo-Katan win a 1v1 if she just has, like, level 3 Beskar, though? Like, let's say we just cut one and it's just 2v3. The problem is, like, if people are still posting LV, you're probably just going to see people who aren't posting Empire or Ufus. Which means you only get one deletion. I'm trying to think. I mean, technically speaking, Bo-Katan kind of gives her synergy for frenzy people, but, like, I don't think Bo-Katan plus Maul is the play here. I think Maul's doing just fine. I don't know, this feels like kind of a starting point. Bo-Katan, I'm not going to say feels amazing, but, like, if you just plug in Bam third, Bam doesn't really change anything, right? The Super Birds... It's not going to work that well in 3v3 anyway. Like, maybe you argue that pause is at least, like, +6 birds for Whistling Birds or whatever. I don't know. I think this is fun. I think Bo-Katan, her level 9, she's going to go off, try to one-shot some people. Really, it would just be a question of trying to make sure that she's self-sustainable. Maybe you end up feeling like you need to just co-op the members of this team to try to help her along her quests. I don't think so. Like, if you really feel that's necessary, you probably just start, like, figuring out a proper tank solution because Bo-Katan doesn't have one. Yeah. Also, like, honestly, for what it's worth, there's a very... Well, wait, what's the wording on her kit? On her level 9? If all allies are light side Mandalorian, so we can't just, like, put her in, like, a GL race even just instantly kill you. Did you thought of that, Alex? Credit where it's due. Okay, so if we really want to go this split, then yeah, it's kind of just going to be Bo-Katan. I guess just looking at 2v2, right? She's going to start as 2, she's going to delete one of your characters, and then if you are Lord Vader, then she's going to delete the other one. And then she's going to try to 2v1 you. Is I guess what's going on there. Alright. We'll see how she does in that quest. Yeah, that's what I said. She doesn't get to insta-kill Lord Vader. It's a 2v1. Actually, I guess. Okay. So, definitely for 3v3, splits can exist. I mean, if you have Bo-Katan in 5v5. Honestly, with Bo-Katan in 5v5, like, at what point do we not just use Bam with Dash anyway? Bo-Katan does not need Bam here at all. She wouldn't be worse off for it, but yeah, it really just depends on use case, where we're looking at. But I definitely think there's real potential where even in 5v5, Dash Bam Super Birds, or Maul Bam Super Birds, or whatever the hell you want to do with your Bam solution, and just Bo goes her own way. Okay. Last but not least, Mandalorian gains 50% turn meter when another ally uses a special ability on their turn. I actually think this ability could be crazy, but it's going to be very hard to theorycraft for, because you're basically gonna have to redo your like aura lead style sequencing from scratch. Like, you wouldn't want this against gas, I don't think. But what I'm trying to think is, in a lot of cases, like, if you, let's say you were clocked to fight against gas, then like Mandalorian would normally overflow. If you ran into that, you could try to just use this extra turn meter to just overflow twice, and so you would still end up with a nuke when you wanted it. It might work. It's very in the weeds, like turn meter tracking wise, so like I'd have to think about it. It might be good against like bounty hunters against Traya, right? Not sure. We'll see. Trait effects. If allied leader is rebel fighter, whenever ally gains a stack of fuel over time, Chirrut and Baze gain 10% offense stacking until the end of battle. Chirrut also gains 5% turn meter. Oh. Wait. I guess it's just tacking that onto the last effect. Okay, so whenever an ally gains a stack of fuel over time, Chirrut gains 5% turn meter, once per turn limit. Once per turn limit is kind of lame. CG's being very cautious, probably for good reason, but again, like, we have like ancient characters who shared this exact same effect who were not limited to once per turn, right? Barriss Offee exists, and Chirrut is very close in a lot of ways to Barriss Offee. Barriss Offee, if you crit someone 10 times in a turn, Barriss is just gonna take a turn. So I don't understand. Like, I get that CG's afraid, they don't want to like make anything too crazy. Just let him have it. Just uncap him. It'll be fine. But yeah, so you get a little bit of reactivity on Chirrut. It's definitely not bad. But yeah, also whenever he basic space is called to assist, you would imagine that works on counters. It's not a bad package effect. Like, maybe Saul tries to feel a little bit scrappy with that. Still have to imagine that it's a step down from anything Saul was doing with set 11. In a pretty big way. I don't know that this effect feels crazy in 2024 Galaxy Heroes. It's not bad in a vacuum. But like, if anything, this might just be more of like a 3v3. Try to use it with like Saw, Chirrut, Baze, and try to do some funky stuff maybe. I don't know, like, right? I don't even think it goes that far. Like, I think if Saul wants to be scrappy in 3v3, he's still probably having to look for like Captain or X type stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's what it is. Bodhi Rook. There's a lot of words here. The allied leader is a rebel fighter. Same deal. Whatever rebel fighter ally gains or loses turn meter or a bonus turn. They recover that much health and protection. We see this as kind of a reactivity clause that CG started with Gideon. I'm a fan. I don't know if it hits as much here as Imperial Remnants, because Remnants like to remove their own stuff a decent amount as well. But yeah, it like this happened in JC this last week, where people are like, why aren't you trying to go for banners? And I just like pop Gideon reset. Everyone just tops off at 65. It's a cool piece of reactivity. I like that clause. It's cool that they're exploring it more. I don't know if we're gonna be abusing it actively for our own squad as often, but it's still a nice piece to have for like, right, they try to move turn meter, you're gonna heal for it. It's cool. Whenever an enemy loses turn meter, they take 10% of their max health as true damage. Also a pretty good effect. Whenever Bodhi Rook uses his basic ability, the target enemy loses 30% turn meter. Can't be resisted. Also a pretty good effect. Bodhi Rook is defeated when another Rebel Fighter ally is active, he revives and takes a bonus turn. It's not a bad effect, it's a niche effect, but it's a solid effect. So basically, I think Bodhi kinda hits with it. It's not bad. The fact that the turn meter removal can't be resisted is solid. He might feel good with Mon Mothma. Past that, I don't know how much I'm... Oh wait, Mon Mothma's not a Rebel Fighter, fuck. Eh. Saw Bodhi's Kara. Oh, that's yeah, almost not a Rebel Fighter lead. Sorry, I'm like on delay kind of. Saw Bodhi Kara. I mean, at some point, though, that's just the worst version of the Kara level 9, which we just had, and wasn't really seeing that much, like, useful play. I don't know, man. Without it being Mon Mothma, you just apply the basic less often. Unless I'm just not thinking of a Rebel Fighter lead, but, like... Yeah, being Rebel Fighter restricted, I think, kind of doesn't entirely kill this, but it severely restricts it. The abuse cases go down drastically. Yeah. Like what? Saw when you proc the bomb or whatever, I think you start using... Or you attack after you do an ability, so like you kind of tap into it more that way, but that's like kind of big ask. Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy. Yeah, like hold himself to assist, blah blah blah. Again, like, it's not bad, I just don't think it is good enough to be significant. Jin, whenever she critically hits an enemy, she gains stacking stats. It's actually not that bad of an effect, because Radis likes to, or not even likes to, Radis kind of has to go the distance already to, like, you use a truncheon, 10%, you use an AoE, 60%, basic, truncheon, you know, AoE, basic, whatever. You're gonna hit 100% of this fairly often, and you're gonna see it stack that high fairly often. It's still, like, Radis is generally just, like, team exposes and team true damage that, like, I mean, whatever. Like, you're finishing off Riva, this will help you close it out, right? Riva survives the true damage and can't be exposed, so you want the damage game plan that kind of hits. Or you just bring Cassian, and then you have heal block on her, and then you don't have to win a DPS race because you just kill her over time, guaranteed attrition. It's not a bad effect. Like, maybe try to pick it up for Radis. I don't hate it. You can do a lot worse. Lando... I guess they printed Lando cannon? I don't think Lando's nearly as effective a damage dealer as Wedges, but who knows? I guess you could do worse than that effect. Biggs, whenever another ally attacks during Biggs' turn, that ally gains 25% turn meter. I don't know if that'd ever be kind of funny for like Leia on defense against Inquisitors. Because Biggs gains turn meter when Empire takes turns. You just like try to give the team some reactive turn meter against Inquisitor stuff. Whether other ally attacks during Biggs' turns. That would work with Mon Mothma, wouldn't it? You guys see the Datacron I'm looking at? What Datacron? What? What are you talking about? Biggs. Smalls. Biggie. Anyway, I feel like this would activate even on like Mon Mothma's granted mass assists. Like even if Biggs is using his basic, everyone's still going to assist. That gives turn meter. So Mon Mothma actually might be in a fairly competitive spot here. That's definitely not bad. And hey, especially we also have a season where you have tenacity on the stat share. I don't know what the magic number to beat for stopping Jawas is. I guess Iden would also be a concern, but like maybe Mon Mothma gets a little bit feisty. Tenacity Kron with Biggs. Plus granted buffs to another ally. There, how about that? Look at that. 10% extra turn meter that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Boom. Done. Yeah, it's like there's nothing crazy here, but sure. And I see that you just goes 10% stacking offense or whatever, right? Depending on what you need. But the turn meter, I mean, hey, as we just went through with the Rebel unbuffed Kron, it turns out Mon Mothma as a squad is pretty good at making buffs that you have to play a very specific way to not do it. So this is just a lower value inverse offer where, hey, just push your buttons and get a little bit of turn meter on top. That's not bad. That's playable. That's usable. Yeah, okay. So Mon Mothma will have a good Kron this set. I don't know if it's quite as crazy. I don't know if it's... But it's like, it's pretty good. And especially you have the abuse case. If Biggs can find anyone who dares to counterattack him, you just go infinite. And the team can now come with. So that's cool. Definitely some potential use cases there. Mon Mothma has an infinite loop? I don't think so. Would it be 35% per? I guess he can give one random person 50% instead of 25? Maybe depending on buff generation from everyone else and like how spammable that is to like fill in the gap. It might be close. Yep, it'll be good. Mon Mothma versus Rey, still probably not really going to be a thing. Mon Mothma versus Rey still kind of suffers from the thing that Zori solves for, which is being able to turn the Terminator train off. This would very much. I mean, I don't know if you ever just like scrap off-rebel Scout. Whatever, talking about the Rey matchup. This would just be a worse version of Hoth-Rebel Scout because you couldn't actually let yourself out. Well, it's still less Terminator than Hoth-Rebel Scout. Anyway. Dark Moff Gideon. At the start of battle, whenever Dark Trooper Moff Gideon uses a special ability, at the start of battle and whenever he uses a special ability, if the allied slot is available, summon a Dark Trooper. I guess that does kind of beg the question of the Dark Trooper's scaling, like, you know, in the case of like GBA, the Brutes had unique stat scalings and like kind of just ignored some stats, scaled pretty well with some stats, scaled pretty horribly with some other stats. So while summoning a Dark Trooper sounds cool, like, kind of begs the question of like, okay, well, what's his base damage going to be? How much is he going to scale with offense? Because like, you think about Afra, for example, that summon that she makes is abysmal damage. So while this is cool flavor, I will believe the power of the summon when I see it and not a moment sooner. But yeah, we see otherwise a summoned allied Dark Trooper gains a stack of Dark Trooper squad instead. That's kind of cool, right? Flavor-wise, just... I don't know that Dark Gideon has a way to, like, keep forcing... Right, he can't, like, run Piet or something to just, like, keep making a summon and then keep getting it killed, I guess. But it's cool flavor. I mean, effectively lets you use the entire faction at once. Again, kind of depending on the Dark Trooper's overall power. Whenever an ally uses a special ability, all Moff Gideons gain a stack of insight. That helps a lot. Non-TW Gideon was kind of struggling in the insight department. This kind of lets him tap into that functionality. Cool to see him at least kind of get the play pattern temporarily. Imperial Armament allies have 50% defense and offense for each stack of insight on Moff Gideons. That's kind of funny. So 120% defense and offense, max potential. That helps. That helps for if you're in situations where enemies aren't gaining insane amounts of turn meter. That might help you push you over the top. It's not bad. Run 2 Dark Troopers now. If the ally slot is available and there is no allied Dark Trooper. Nope. Don't think the summon Dark Trooper starts with 4 stacks. I'm not sure. Imperial Probe Droid. Didn't we already have this once? Loses all protection, gains that much max health, can be revived after using self-destruct, ignores taunt. I don't remember if it had ignores taunt last time. Whenever using self-destruct, the target enemy takes additional true damage equal to 50% of Probe Droid's max health, which can't be evaded. I don't hate this effect. It's still just kind of the concern of IPD just isn't what it used to be. Damage-wise. Yeah, he gets the 50% health scaling now, but 50% health scaling is also not necessarily enough to pop heads. We'll see. I mean, it's nice for Iden as well. I don't know if this does anything for Grievous. Maybe. I forget if Grievous procs on IPD dying. I would think he would, right? But wasn't there something about they disabled Grievous's bonus turns for IPD Cron? I don't entirely remember that. But that's, like, kind of cool. Kind of value. They need to be revived. Can be revived. See, I thought that the last version of the Cron auto-revived him. Am I crazy? I guess it just says can, yeah. Yeah, I kind of assumed. I assumed too much. Okay, that's nowhere... I mean, well... I mean, Afro will still revive him, right? That is true. It's just going to be less dynamic and Grievous loses the abuse case. Can I type? No, I cannot. Revive. Yeah, revive a non-sub Darkside Droid ally. Yeah. So Afro will be able to kind of tap into it. She's probably the foremost and probably one of the only users of this, but it's there for her. Not bad. I already use IPD with Afro generally, so yeah, just slight boost in power for her, I guess. Well, yeah, no, because we're probably not going to be using Honda with Afro, so that is still just true. Useful in 2 months, yeah, more or less. That trooper, the first time he is defeated, he's revived with 100% health. Gain protection over time, 75% for 2 turns, and then take a bonus turn. This still just loses to Bo-Katan, so just kill him again. I don't know. Is that it? All that good? It's not amazing. She kind of does that already. Yeah, she kind of does that already. There are definitely some cases where, like, Iden on defense, Bad Bash the reactive, Death, Revive, bonus turn, possibly threaten AoE, would at least require some respect. It's better than nothing, I guess. I'm not, like, losing my mind over it. Gideon's probably just going to run the Gideon effect. I don't really see Death Trooper getting much usage here. Maybe you just throw it in Identity, because why not if you just don't plan on using the Gideon 9 or don't care about the summon. I mean, hey, it's entirely possible that the summon 9 Dark Trooper is just going to be bad. And so running your own is still going to be better, and maybe that Trooper's open. And then maybe you're like, I'm going to use that Trooper in my Ident squad. And I have this level 9, and I'm going to put it in, and then you can put it in, and you'll have it. That's about it. Short Trooper, 20% damage reflect. Damage reflect rarely does enough to matter. Or at the very least, damage reflect needs some sort of other effect that happens when you deal damage to really make it matter. Like we kind of saw that a little bit with Tarful. We don't have that here that I can think of. Doesn't really matter. You know I like Shore, but this changes nothing for him. Krennic. 200% stacking like Ident has. Oh, that's adorable. Wow, it's like poetry. Yeah, it's there. It exists. Still probably not using them. I would maybe like have shouted out Krennic and Lord Vader, but Bo-Katan's just gonna lead the entire squad. So, yeah, double use case. I'm good. All right, so that concludes the set. That is just about all there is to say that I can think of. There's definitely some stuff here. I feel like the set comes out looking better than a set 12 for sure. I say as I then switch over here. Placeholders? What do you mean? I mean, they just like include it as like a low roll, right? I discovered something in this game. This game fucking hits, man. This game is hitting on a lot of the shit that I look for in a game. This is the usual running speed. I mean, this is just like Jedi Survivor all over again, basically. Also, I actually might just make like a... I'm gonna make myself make a Galaxy of Heroes video if I do make this, because otherwise this is just gonna make people wonder about my channel. I'd probably just make like a 2-minute guide on like... It doesn't need to be 2 minutes. You can do it without blowing ammo. If you time it right. If you don't do it right, you just end up blowing your entire quiver. But once you have no arrows in it, it's just like really easy. Like you don't really have to worry about screwing up the timing because it's just when you put it in. We've counted the movement again? Yes. No, that... I was very happy to actually come across that. And the way it works is... Like, you can shoot the arrow at any time. Like, it's almost kind of League Callista in the way that it controls. But you kind of slide if you do it earlier. But what you do is you need to input the next dash right as the last one stops. Actually, wait, sorry. Let me finish getting the stream. Settings changed. Yeah. Lost Crown. How many fucking games are called Lost Crown? What are you talking? Oh, OBS is gonna kill my shit. Alright. I'll do it here. Yeah, overall, Southern team will be strong. I think my concerns in 5v5 are not going to change for the near future. Unless CG does something. Could be fun in 3v3, right? I'm very excited and happy to see Paz getting some more consistency. Could make that OG Bo squad feel pretty good, I think. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is to like slide, and it's like slide, fire, shot, like slide fire shot the moment that you're about to shoot it. You just need to input the dash like as soon after the shot as possible. And the better you are, the less shots that you actually fire off. Honestly, it doesn't look even that bad that you just like screw it up and start firing shots. Like that probably still has value. But ideally. Also, I have it on my side mouse button. I need to figure out some keybind or like I almost might macro this shit because this is just like a one-way trip to a fucking RSI. It looks damn cool. Alright, I need to figure out where I'm actually going and stop like... I mean, for my current level of consistency with it, I'm probably just gonna end up dumping my arrows anyway, so I might as well just get it out of the way. Nope. Where am I actually supposed to go? It's not this, right? I died here? Oh. Alright. I was not doing jack shit to it for damage, and we hit the forge with no resources to actually upgrade my damage. I need the air dash. I've seen footage. I know it exists now. I just need it. And I need to not fucking die. I don't... How much do I really want to grind on that? Like, it's beatable, I guess, technically. But I don't think games actually expects me to get through it right now. This is the biggest flaw that I'm having with this game right now is I just need better, like, damage punishes. Early as fuck. I think that was the second phase transition too. We can do this for sure. Low charge? Nope. God, that poison pool does so much damage. How did I get stuck? Why am I stuck? Oh, that poison is gonna fucking kill me. I rolled through the claw. Maybe the down shadow hit me? He's beatable. I just need to figure out how to optimize my damage better. And to not get hit by that. If I parry the claw, can I just like deny the poison pool? That would be useful. I'm gonna try parrying it. Nope. Does poisoning stop me from doing shit? Can I parry that? I've never actually tried. So far, nothing has worked. Like, it does a weird zoom thing as I go for the parry. I don't know if I'm just, like, slightly late. That was either early or it doesn't work. Interesting. Did his eyes flash during that? If the eyes are flashing, then it's a tell that I shouldn't be trying. But oh, it's 100% unblockable. His eyes flash. Okay, I was just looking at the tail. I tried parrying that. It looks like it should be unblockable, but I don't see a flash. Okay. We can't stop the poison pool. I feel like the arrow combo appears to be doing much more damage on the grounds. looking at the wrong shit. I fucking buried. I think it was early. Side mouse for dashing mechanics is true canon, so I survived Warframe. I actually did a shift sprint C slide space jump for Warframe. Side mouse, but I mean honestly for Warframe, again like side mouse button kind of seems like fast track to RSI. Side mouse had to be the slide. Nah, I don't know. I'm trying to see if I can get greedier on the timings to get some more damage windows. His fucking hitbox pushed me into the poison. See, the fact that he's reaching, I'm like trying to dodge his body hitbox, but he's like reaching down, and I think that's what's catching me out. I need to dodge the claws, not the buddy, I guess. Hopefully that's good enough. about fucking Shadow. Oh. Why did I saw him do the same thing he does with the cutscene. I thought he was gonna cutscene again. I like wasn't in reflex mode.